Welcome to the deep dive. You, the learner, sent us your learning materials, and, our mission is basically to pull out the really valuable stuff for you. Think of it as your personalized shortcut,
Yeah.
getting straight to what matters.
Exactly. We sift through everything you've shared, and we spotlight those key things that can genuinely make a difference for you.
So today, we're diving into something huge,
Mm.
achieving English fluency. You gave us some great material. There's this big guide, the Tapestry of Fluency, and then some excerpts from another document that honestly really backs up the main ideas.
Yeah, what jumped out at me straight away was this idea that fluency is, well, it's so much more than just vocabulary and grammar. It's deeper, richer.
Totally.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to unpack the really important actionable bits from all this. We'll look at how your own personality can actually help,
Which is fascinating.
right? And how to really keep your focus locked in. Some very practical, down-to-earth strategies you can use like tomorrow. And also some stories to kind of keep that fire in your belly going. Okay, let's dig in.
Right. Let's start with maybe something you wouldn't immediately think of for language learning. Personality. The materials you sent stress that personality isn't like fixed. You can actually develop bits of it to become a better learner.
Okay, interesting. The guide mentions the big 5 personality traits. How? How on earth do they connect to learning English?
Well, it's pretty cool, actually. Each one can either naturally help you or you can sort of consciously work on it. Take openness to experience. This is all about being curious, imaginative, willing to try new things.
Okay.
For learning English, it means you're more likely to explore the culture, engage with native speakers, maybe even grasp intuitive stuff faster. It helps your brain become more receptive.
So if you want to dial up your openness for learning English, what's something concrete you could do?
The sources suggest actively looking for English content that pushes you a bit, outside your usual comfort zone, maybe different music genres, films you wouldn't normally pick, articles on totally new subjects.
Right.
And crucially, just saying yes more often to using English, even if it feels a bit scary.
That makes total sense. Okay, what about conscientiousness? That feels pretty key for learning anything difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Conscientiousness is your self-discipline, organization, how methodical you are. Language learning really rewards that consistent effort, so being organized and sticking to your practice is, well, fundamental.
And for someone who's maybe not naturally super organized, how can they cultivate that for their studies?
The advice is pretty straightforward. Make a realistic study plan. Set those SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Use a planner, an app, whatever works for you to track your time and progress. Seeing that effort pay off visually, that can be really motivating.
Got it. Okay, next up, extraversion. You'd think being outgoing is a huge plus for speaking practice, right?
It definitely gives you an edge, yeah. Extroverts get energy from interacting, so they're often quicker to jump into conversations. But, and this is important, the sources say even if you're more introverted, you can develop something they call learning extraversion.
Learning extraversion.
Huh.
How do you do that?
You start small, low-stakes stuff. Ask a simple question on an English forum, maybe reply to a comment online, or join a really small, informal language group. The idea isn't to suddenly become the life of the party, but just find comfortable ways to practice speaking with others.
That's really practical advice. Now, agreeableness,
Yeah.
being cooperative, empathetic, how does that fit in?
Agreeableness impacts how well you take feedback and how you work with others. If you're open to constructive criticism and you build good relationships with, say, teachers or language partners, it just makes the whole learning process richer.
So the tip there is,
Basically, practice really listening when someone gives you feedback on your English. Try not to get defensive. And be supportive of other learners, too. Offer encouragement. It creates a better vibe for everyone.
makes sense. And the last one, neuroticism, or maybe better put, emotional stability. Learning a language can definitely be an emotional roller coaster sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's about how you handle negative feelings like anxiety or self-doubt. Emotional stability helps you deal with the tough stuff, making mistakes, hitting those plateaus with more resilience.
So how can you boost your emotional stability when things get frustrating?
The sources suggest reframing mistakes. See them as learning chances, not failures. Maybe try some mindfulness or just deep breathing if you feel anxious before speaking. And really celebrate the small wins. It builds confidence and pushes back against that self-doubt.
Wow, it's actually quite powerful thinking about how our personalities play into this. But the materials go further, right? Into mindset.
They do. Carol Dweck's work on fixed mindset versus growth mindset comes up, and it's super relevant. A fixed mindset is believing your abilities are just, well, fixed. You're either good at something or you're not.
Right.
A growth mindset is believing you can develop abilities through effort and learning.
And how does that basic belief affect someone trying to get fluent in English?
Big time. If you have a fixed mindset, mistakes feel like proof you just don't have the language gene or whatever.
Yeah.
You might give up easily. But with a growth mindset, mistakes are like data points, opportunities to figure out what went wrong and improve. That outlook is just crucial for sticking with it long term.
Okay, so how do you actively nurture a growth mindset for English learning?
The sources give some great tips. First, embrace imperfection. Honestly, even native speakers mess up words. Focus on your progress, not some imaginary finish line of perfection. Actively ask for constructive feedback, see it as a guide. And maybe the biggest one, reframe failure. Instead of I'm bad at this, think I haven't figured this out yet.
That yet makes such a difference. And this ties right into resilience and self-efficacy, which you mentioned the sources also cover.
Exactly. Resilience is your ability to bounce back. Self-efficacy is believing you can succeed at something specific, like, say, ordering coffee in English. Both are totally essential for the long haul of fluency.
So practical ways to build up that resilience and self-belief.
Set small, achievable goals. Seriously small sometimes. Each little win builds the I can do this feeling. Also, think back to other times you learned something hard. Remember that feeling of accomplishment. Channel that.
Okay.
Create a supportive environment for positive people. Maybe join a group. And even try visualizing success. Picture yourself having that conversation, understanding that movie. It really can boost your motivation.
It's amazing how much of this is internal work, isn't it? Building that psychological foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the inner landscape. Now, how do we keep our eyes on the prize? How do we stay focused on fluency when, let's be honest, the world is full of distractions?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge today. The sources really hammer this point home. Maintaining focus for a long-term goal like fluency, it's tough. And the very first step they emphasize is knowing your why.
Your core motivation. The real reason you started this whole thing.
Precisely. Is it your career? Connecting with family, travel, enjoying movies without subtitles, just personal growth. The sources say write it down, keep it somewhere visible. It's your compass when you feel lost or distracted.
Yeah, there's a great example of Anjali from India, wasn't it? Picturing herself leading those international presentations. That kept her going.
Exactly. That clear why gave her the push she needed when maybe she just wanted to scroll social media instead of studying.
Okay, so the why is the foundation. But what about actually dealing with all the pings and notifications, those digital distractions?
Oh, yeah. Lots of practical tactics here. Time blocking is key, setting aside specific, non-negotiable time just for English study, no interruptions. The Pomodoro technique is great, too. 25 minutes focused work, 5-minute break really helps maintain concentration. And, probably obvious but essential, turn off notifications, at least the non-essential ones, on your phone, your computer, everywhere.
Definitely a constant battle. Any other tricks for minimizing digital noise?
App blockers, website blockers, they can be lifesavers during study time. Just temporarily block access to the things that pull you away. Also, having a dedicated learning space, if possible, somewhere you mostly just study. It helps create the right mental state.
Right. Sure.
And just generally being more mindful about why you're picking up your phone. Is it habit? Are you avoiding something? Just asking the question can help break the cycle.
Those are really solid tips. I also like the idea the sources mentioned about creating a focus ritual, a little routine before you start studying.
Yeah, it's like a signal to your brain. Okay, time to focus now. Could be anything simple. Making a specific tea, putting on some quiet music, a couple of deep breaths, quick look at your goals for the session.
Creates a mental trigger. Nice. And the sources also talked about single tasking.
Oh, definitely. Trying to multitask while learning, it usually just means you're not really paying full attention to anything. So dedicate your focus. If you're listening, just listen. If you're doing grammar, just do grammar, one thing at a time.
Okay, but it's not just the phone buzzing, is it? Sometimes it's our own thoughts buzzing, the internal distractions.
The monkey mind, as the sources call it. Yeah, worries, random thoughts. The mental to-do list. One technique they suggest is a brain dump. Before you start studying, just scribble down everything bouncing around in your head. Get it out.
That sounds useful, like clearing the decks. What else helps with the internal chatter?
Mindfulness, meditation, even just a few minutes regularly can train your brain to notice thoughts without getting swept away. Improves focus overall. Also, just accepting that some days will be harder to focus than others. That's okay. Just do your best on that day. Even 15 focused minutes is better than 0.
Yeah.
Marco from Brazil's story was great here. He used no phone study blocks and meditation to tackle both the external and internal stuff.
Real-world proof it works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, lastly on SOCUS, the sources mentioned accountability and social support.
Yeah, telling someone your goals, a study buddy, language partner, can make you more likely to stick to them. Some people find making a public commitment helpful, though that's optional. And just being in a class or a group provides natural structure and, well, peer pressure in a good way.
Okay, so that's a really solid strategy for focus. Know your why, tame the tech, manage your mind, and use your connections. Now let's get into the really practical stuff, the toolkit. Realistic tips and tricks for actually getting fluent.
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road. And the big message here is find what works for you and be realistic and consistent. A huge theme is immersion, creating your own little English world, even if you're miles away from an English-speaking country.
Okay, how do you actually do that? Create an English bubble at home.
Several ways. Change your digital settings, phone, computer, social media, all to English. That's a start. Then consume English media actively. Music, podcasts, audiobooks are great. TV and movies, too. The guides suggest progressing with subtitles. Maybe start with subtitles in your language, then English subtitles, then try none.
Good progression.
And pay attention not just to words, but intonation, slang, how people really talk. You can even stick labels on things around your house, table, chair. And try consciously to think in English sometimes during the day.
Okay.
The realistic tip, though, start small. Pick 1 or 2 of these immersion techniques. Don't try to do everything at once.
That feels much less overwhelming. Now, the sources talked about active versus passive learning. What's the key difference there?
Passive is just having English on in the background while you cook or something. It's not very effective. Active learning is when you're really engaging. For listening, maybe you summarize what you heard, take notes, try to answer questions about it.
Right.
For reading, look up words you don't know, think about sentence structure, guess meanings from context, maybe read out loud. You're doing something with the material.
And for vocabulary,
Yeah.
active strategies.
Learn words in context, definitely. Don't just memorize lists. Use spaced repetition systems, SRS, like Anki or Quizlet. They work really well for remembering long-term. And the most important thing, use the new words. Put them in your own sentences when speaking or writing. Otherwise, you just forget them. Creating vocabulary themes can help too, like learning words related to cooking 1 week.
Makes sense. Okay, the big one, speaking, often the scariest part. What practical advice is there for overcoming that fear and actually talking?
Well, first, talk to yourself in English. No pressure, just practice forming thoughts out loud. Recording yourself speaking is also super valuable, even if it feels weird at first. You really hear things you need to work on.
Right.
Language exchange partners, online tutors, fantastic for real conversation practice and getting feedback. Shadowing is another good one. Listen to a native speaker and repeat right after them, trying to copy their rhythm and intonation.
I've heard of that.
And the absolute key, embrace mistakes. Seriously. They're going to happen. They're how you learn. The realistic tip here is start small. Short conversations. Ordering coffee, asking for directions. Build up from there. Kenji's story from Japan was cool. He used scripting for common situations and recorded himself practicing. Really practical.
That's a great, less scary way to start. The sources also really emphasized consistency over intensity, didn't they?
Absolutely. Daily short practice beats weekly, long cramming sessions every time. For building habits, that is. They mentioned habit stacking, linking your English practice to something you already do every day, like brushing your teeth or having your morning coffee. Makes more automatic.
Smart. And obviously setting realistic goals and tracking your progress helps you stay on track.
Yeah, SMART goals again. And keeping a learning journal. Write down what you learned, how you felt, what progress you made. It gives you that sense of achievement, especially when you hit the plateau.
The plateau. So discouraging when you feel stuck.
Yeah.
What do the sources say about breaking through that?
Mix it up. Change your routine. Challenge yourself differently. Maybe focus purely on pronunciation for a bit or writing. Sometimes you need to revisit the basics. And always, always reconnect with your why. Why are you doing this?
Right.
Aisha from Egypt's story was a good example. She got stuck at intermediate, so she hired a coach specifically for rhythm and intonation. Targeted effort broke the plateau.
And finally, got to make it fun.
Yes. Connect English to your hobbies. Find games or apps that make learning fun. Reward yourself when you hit milestones. If it feels like a total chore, you're less likely to stick with it. Enjoyment is key for sustainability.
These are all such useful, concrete things you can actually do. Now, to really drive home that fluency as possible, the sources shared some amazing stories from learners worldwide. Let's talk about these echoes of success.
Yeah, these stories are great because they show there's no single right way, but there are common themes. Like Elena Petrova from Russia, she didn't have people to practice speaking with, so she made opportunities, online forums, podcasts, blogging, eventually even an intensive course abroad. She was proactive.
Didn't just wait for it to happen.
Exactly. Then there's David Kim from South Korea. He had pronunciation hurdles for a test, so he got really systematic, studied phonetics, recorded himself constantly for self-correction, joined public speaking groups. Patience and focus were key for him. And Fatima Al-Nasser from Saudi Arabia, juggling family life. She got creative, weaving English into her day with kids shows, social media, even volunteering as a conversation partner.
Yeah.
Resourcefulness and community were big for her.
Finding time wherever she could.
Right. And Carlos Rodriguez from Colombia, needing more than just basic English for business. He used business podcasts, really focused on imitating native speakers, networked actively, found a mentor. He learned the culture with the language and sought out challenging situations.
Wow. Different paths, but what's this common thread you see in all these stories?
Resilience, definitely. They all hit bumps but kept going. Creative problem solving, they found ways around their specific obstacles. Stepping outside their comfort zones, for sure. And a really strong commitment driven by their why. They knew why they were putting in the effort.
It's really inspiring stuff. Shows it can be done from anywhere with dedication. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, let's bring it back to you, the learner. How can you take all this, the personality insights, the focus techniques, the practical tips, these stories, and start weaving your own tapestry of fluency?
Yeah, that tapestry metaphor from the sources is really nice. It emphasizes that it's a personal journey and one that helps you grow as a person too. We've covered a lot. Understanding yourself as a learner, finding your focus, using the right tools, getting inspired by others.
So what are the absolute core takeaways for you, the learner, moving forward?
The sources kind of boil it down to these key ideas. First, know thyself. Understand your style, your strengths, what you need to work on. Second, define your why. Keep that motivation front and center.
Right.
Third, be consistent. Little and often is the way. Fourth, embrace imperfection. Mistakes are learning fuel, not failures. Fifth, seek connection. Practice with others, learn from others. And finally, stay curious and enjoy the process. Find the fun in it. Let that joy pull you forward.
It really sounds like it's about taking these principles and tailoring them to your own life,
Yeah.
your own way of learning, actively building your English fluency day by day.
Exactly. And like the sources say, the world through English is waiting for you to engage with it.
Beautifully put. So this deep dive has really explored that whole multifaceted path to English fluency based entirely on the insights from the materials you provided, the learner. We genuinely hope this gives you a clearer picture, something beyond just grammar and vocab lists.
Yeah, we really encourage you to take some time now. Think about what we've discussed, personality, focus, those practical tips, the stories. How can you start applying some of this to your own learning, starting now?
And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. Thinking about everything, your personality, your focus challenges, all those strategies, what's the one thing that feels most relevant or potentially game-changing for you right now? And what's one tiny experiment you could try in the next few days based on that one thing?
Just remember, it's a continuous journey. Keep exploring, keep trying things out, and keep weaving that amazing tapestry of English fluency.